Hey there, everyone. We're back with, I think, part 13 of the Q&A. And this one might be short, it might be long, I don't know. I've got some stuff to do, and I'm just waiting on it, so possibly it'll be short, and possibly it'll be long. Who knows? But I'm going to get into these so I can, you know, get into it, I guess. So we've got our first series of questions from um, Mark Vrienholk. I never know how to pronounce his name, but yeah, I'm never going to be able to pronounce that without someone telling me what it is first. Um, but he knows who he is. He knows. So, question question one. I just scrolled past it. There we go. Question one: Have you ever played the MSX, MSX2, or the MSX Turbo R? Um, Apparently the MSX was huge in the Netherlands. I didn't know that. And there was never an MSX in the US, I don't think. We just had regular Windows at that time. But I've never played an MSX. I've seen them, but I've never played one. Um, I wouldn't actually even know how to operate it. I guess it's DOS, right? Some kind of Microsoft DOS. Um, so possibly I could use it. I mean, I know how to use DOS, but I've never used an MSX, so I've never like thought of buying one because I thought like, geez, I'm gonna have to learn how to use a whole new computer. Um, and plus, they're kind of expensive. I don't. They're like still pretty expensive to get an MSX. Like, if you want one, you're just gonna be like paying a lot, and then you're not gonna find games really easily. It's just kind of a. And there's not like a ton of stuff on the MSX that I'm like super interested in. So, I mean, stuff that's not in other places. Um, so I haven't played an MSX. It's interesting to me though. I'm interested in the MSX. I'd be interested in some arguments as to why I should be interested in it actually, if you have any. So let's see. Question two. You said you were a big fan of the Hellraiser series. Do you also read the books of Clive Barker? And if so, what are your favorite books? He made a new book this year, Scarlet Gospels, which features Pinhead, but I heard it's not as good as his old books. I'll talk about both of those. The second one wasn't a question; it was just a comment. But I'll comment on your comment. But I do read Clive Barker's books. I've read almost all of them. I haven't. There's a few I haven't read. Um, some of the more recent ones. I still haven't read Mr. Be Gone. I have it, but I haven't read it yet. Um, that's it though. I Off the top of my head, that's the only one I haven't read. There might be more, but um, I'm trying to think of what my favorite would be though. It might it might be because I like the short story collections a lot. So like any of those, I could say. Um, my favorite Clive Barker story altogether is probably In the Hills, the Cities, which I think I talked about in another one of these Q and A's. But that's not the book. So I guess I'll take out the short story collection. So like that takes out things like The Last Illusion, which I really like, and the Books of Blood, which are really good. I'll just go for the full on novels, and I guess it would be Weave World then. It's the first Clive Barker book I read though, so it kind of has a special place. I read that book when it first came out, and I was probably too young to be reading that book when it first came out. But whatever. It's a good book. But Scarlet Gospels, let's talk about that because I think I also talked about that recently. Maybe on here, maybe not. But Scarlet Gospels is not as good as any of Clive Barker's stuff, and the rumor is that his his publisher, not his publisher, but his editor, kind of ghost wrote it from Clive Barker's notes. Like, if you keep track of Clive Barker, he hasn't like really written anything recently, and he's been like going crazy with his art. So he's been painting, and like if you like follow him on Facebook or something, he always posts like art stuff that he's doing, and art books are coming out, but there's never any new writing stuff. And I think he's just like more focused on doing the art stuff now. So there's no stories, and I mean, that's okay, but like Scarlet Gospels came out, and it's like really different from any other Clive Barker book. It doesn't feel like a Clive Barker book. So it's one of two things. The rumor is true, and that his editors wrote it from Clive Barker's notes, or Clive Barker lost his writing touch. And I hope it's the former because, like, you know, he's up until now he's been really great. Um, so let's see. Question three: what are the do's and don'ts when flirting, romancing, dating Japanese women? Um, I don't know. It's different for everybody, I guess. Um, you know, everybody has their own kind of type they like, I guess. So it's hard to. I mean, it's hard to say do and don't. I mean, I guess, like, if I had specific examples, I could say, like, don't do that, but usually they're universal. Um, you know, don't be a slob. Don't take a shower every once in a while. But I mean, that's not like, I don't think you need that advice though. You know, have good hygiene, those kinds of things. But like, you know, beyond that, everything else is gonna be like a situational kind of thing where it's hard to like give advice without being there. Um, it's, you know, because general rules are never really good rules for some kind of dating. They, you know, things that work really well with some people just don't work with other people. And in sometimes they work in some situations and don't work in others. And it's just hard to like be general when about a specific, if that makes any sense. So I guess I can't really answer that beyond like real generalities that everybody should already know. But one of the best advice you can have for if you're like really interested in that is like learn Japanese. Sounds stupid, but a lot of people don't do it. Question four: what is the most precious game you own? Not in terms of financial value, but in terms of personal nostalgic value. You know, like I don't really have that many because all of my personally nostalgic games are in the U.S. So, you know, like my current collection, I mean, if it went up in flames, like you know, it would suck, and it would be like a huge loss of money. But there's nothing like I'm super invested in right now that I have. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed, but I think like most of it's replaceable. I don't have any like huge nostalgic feelings built into that stuff. So I guess nothing at the moment. Like, and plus my U.S. stuff, like I haven't, even when I was in the U.S., I didn't look at it, so I don't even know if it's still there. Could be. I hope it is because it's like tons and tons of stuff. But who knows? So that's question five. Would you consider visiting the Netherlands? Yeah, I'd like to go. I've never been to Europe, but I'd like to go to Europe. It seems like it's a good place to go. Um, so the Netherlands seems like a bit good as place as any. I don't really know what's there. I don't know what I'd do there, but I'd go. That would be cool. Um, question six. Wait? Have you ever met developers of games that you love during your time in Japan? I haven't met any developers of games that I love. Well, I guess that's not true. I met somebody who worked on Soul Sacrifice, and I really did like that game a lot. But I haven't met any like famous developers or like developers of like games that are like legendary to me. But you know, I met someone who worked on some TurboGrafx games, and I met someone who, you know, the Soul Sacrifice person. And I met some other people too that have worked on other things. Like, you know, like one of my friends worked on Shin Megami Tensei 4, um, doing debugging. So it's not exactly like a glamorous part of the process, but like that's what was going on. Um, I don't know. That's about it though. I think I haven't really met that many people. Um, I've met some like pro gamers, but that's not the same thing. That's about it though. So thanks for your questions, Mark. And next we've got more questions. Um, uh, these are hardly questions. I don't know what they are. Um, but we've got Zero Escape Fan 999 or Zero Escape 999 Fan. That's what it is. Asked three questions. He says, here are three easy questions. What do you call a man who is short on time? I it's it we've got riddles. Um, I should call a man who is short on time a Punctual midget? I don't know. Um, who is red and blue with nice brown shoes? Um, my guess is that there's probably a good police brutality joke in there. I just don't have it. So if you wanna, if you, anybody can think of one, feel free to put it in the comments. Um, let's see. Okay, question 3. Two people die in a cabin at the same time. No suicide, no homicide. Natural causes or the supernatural were involved. How did these two die? This I know actually. I've heard this before. It's the answer is actually an airplane crash. Um, because a cabin of an airplane. But I guess I mean technically that's sort of natural cause. It's an accident, but it's not unnatural. I don't know. So that's the 3 questions. I don't. The first 2 I have no idea what the answers to are the actual answers. Question next we've got Devoid Dude back with one more question, which is, will you play I Am Setsuna? No, I'm not interested in that. It came out like a long time ago here, and it has a different name. It's like Ikenie no Yuki no Setsuna or something. Maybe that's what it is. But I haven't played that. It's not interesting to me. I'm not even really big into the battle system for Chrono Trigger, and that's what it's based on. And I'm not really up on the story, and it didn't look incredibly interesting to me beyond oh look, it plays like Chrono Trigger. Who cares? I'm not into it. I'm not even super into Chrono Trigger, so it's that kind of thing. Um, this one isn't a question; it's just a comment, but it's one I will be happy to read. Um, Sega 94486 says fuck shorts, and I say you are correct, sir. Fuck shorts. Um, Ozeloto is back with another question. He asks, favorite Fallout game and why? Did you play Brotherhood of Steel? Okay, favorite Fallout game is probably, it's probably 2, but, one is I have more nostalgia for because it's kind of the introduction I had to the game. But Fallout 2 is it's it's better than Fallout 1. It's just a better game. So I have more nostalgia for 1, but part 2 is probably the better game. I like 3. I like 3 and 4, and I played those a ton. I put hundreds of hours into both of those. But I'm not gonna. They're still not better than the isometric ones on the PC. And if they made more games, more Fallout games like isometric PC ones, I'd buy them. And that's evident because I played Wasteland 2, and it was good. It's like playing a Fallout game, the old Fallout game, and it was good. So, yeah, okay. So next question, Lawrence Evans asks, do you only review games on your channel you've beaten, or do you also review games while you're halfway or near the end of the game? Have I answered this before? Have I I feel like I've answered this. Am I just repeating questions now? I forgot to mark these as answered. Maybe. But anyway, I only review games that I've beaten on the when I give impressions on a game, it's a game I've already finished, and in not most cases, but in some cases, it's games I've beaten multiple times. So when I did my review, SMT4 review, I beat that game 4 times by the time before I reviewed it. Other games like that too. If there's multiple endings that require you to play them to get a true ending, I'll play all of them and before I do the an actual review of the game. Just so I can be gauge it more accurately, which is why I think that had to do a lot of the reason why I didn't really like the new Fire Emblem as much as I should have, because I played it 3 times and it had a lot of flaws. So it wouldn't have been as I wouldn't have been as bitter about it if I had played it only once, or had the option to play it only once, I guess. But I had to play it 3 times. I got 3 games for the price of 3 games, I guess, because that's kind of how much it cost. And 3 games with all the same flaws and all the same issues. So that kind of thing is the downside of only like playing stuff that you've beaten. But like, on the other hand, it it's more honest, I think, for me to play the entire game before I talk about it, because like, I see a lot of people do reviews of games that they obviously haven't finished. They obviously haven't played through, and their opinion is like flawed in a lot of ways, because I've seen people do this all the time online. It's just like a constant thing where like, you know, there's lots of big offenders where like you're throwing out your hidden gems videos for like 30 games you've played 30 minutes of. Like that's not helpful. It's not helpful to anybody who actually is interested in playing a game like that, because you can't get the full idea of a game in 30 minutes. And sometimes you can't get the full idea of a game in 30 hours. Um, and there's plenty of examples of that where games that I've played and I thought like, why does this game have such shit reviews? It's such a good game. And then like, you get partway through the game and you'll find out like the second half is terrible, and it just like ruins like there's a huge quality decline towards the second half, and you'll be like, well, had I played only half of this, I would have thought like this game is awesome and would have recommended it to everybody. And then they would have got to the second half and they would have been like, dude, Joe doesn't know what he's talking about, that game is shit. And that happens all the time online, because you'll see people who are like, yeah, this game is awesome, you should play it, and then you find out like they played like an hour of it, and you're just like, well, fuck, I just bought this on the recommendation of someone who hasn't even played the game. So it's the kind of thing where like, I'm mostly on YouTube. Like once you figure someone is doing that, I just unsubscribe. Like I'm just done with that, because mostly I'm like looking, when I watch other people's videos on YouTube, I'm looking for like solid opinions on a game to judge whether I'm interested. And if someone doesn't give you an opinion that like is informed, then their opinion is worthless. It just doesn't make it does not it's not useful. So like, if you're someone who is like playing no games for, you're playing a ton of games for an hour at a time, and then you're just like recommending that shit to people, you're not helpful. You're not helping anyone. You're maybe helping your channel get more clicks, but you're not helping the actual people who are interested in playing games. So, I try to not be that. I try to play all the games into, you know, mild completion, not 100% completion. Like, I'm not going to play, even though like I beat all the Yakuza games, I'm not going to play any of those to 100% completion. It's just not going to happen, because there's too much side stuff that is incidental. Like you can try it once and get the idea of it, but like, some games. But I'm going to go through the entire story, is what I mean. Like I'm going to go through the entirety of like the main campaign for any game that I'm talking about, and test out like any extra features that may be there, I guess. Otherwise, like I feel like my review wouldn't be like, talking about the game wouldn't be worthwhile. There'd be no point to watch like me rambling in front of a camera for 30 minutes about a game I've played half of. It would be pointless. My opinion would probably be different if I played through the whole thing. So I just play through the whole thing first, and don't worry about people crying about that. And I would be crying about it too. Like I wouldn't actually, but like I would feel betrayed a bit if I like, had someone recommending something to me, and then like I found out they didn't actually play it. So I don't know. I feel like I've answered that before though. So I'm worried that I'm gonna have to go back and check if I've answered these. Um, let's see. Next we've got Stroopwafel in I don't know. That's like IJSJE. I wouldn't even know how to pronounce that. But okay, he knows who he is. I'm answering his questions now. Is there nostalgia in Japan for the '90s gaming scene? Probably. I'm sure there is. I mean, I'm sure there's nostalgia for that kind of thing everywhere. Um, and I think like not just Japan, but the '90s gaming scene was different in a lot of ways, because it's before the internet was a big thing, and that matters. It matters for a lot of things, because like when you were if you were like someone who played games in the 90s, and not like not for the entirety of the 90s obviously, but if you're in the early 90s, you're like 1992, like you're not, your options to play games online is like pretty non-existent. Not to say that zero, but you know, by the time you get to like 1996 or so, you can play games online. It's not a, it's not impossible. But like you're in the early 90s, you I mean by the late 90s you could play like Diablo was online. You could play all StarCraft. You could play all that stuff online. But like in the early 90s you didn't have that. And you not only that, you didn't have like um online databases of how to play games or lists of games. You didn't know. You had to rely on magazines and books and things and strategy guides, things like that to even get by. So, if you got stuck in a game in the early 90s, like you got to like go to the bookstore, or you got to call like a tip line for $3 a minute or whatever. That's like, you know, it's not exactly the same kind of situation. I think like that actually does mean something. It means a little bit more when there's a hard game in the 90s and you get through it, because like there's not an internet to rely on. So you have to either figure that shit out and get good by yourself, or you have to like buy a strategy guide and still get good by by yourself, but with a guide. Um, and as opposed to now, like if there was something in a game where you get stuck, you can just be like, I'm gonna check a FAQ and I'll be fine. Or like I'll look at how somebody did that online on a video and I'll like just copy that. Like you couldn't do that previously. So I think there's a kind of scene of people who are interested in the 90s kind of nostalgia for games in the terms of the gaming scene, not the games itself. I mean, that's not the question you asked. So the scene itself is like a bit more of a meritocracy, because like, when you have to beat games by yourself, like beating those games means a bit more than it does now, when like kind of anybody can beat anything. But I don't know about it specifically for Japan. I'm sure there are people who like retro games. That's not a mystery. But so I mean, there must be some nostalgia for it. But it's not. I don't know that it's like a mainstream nostalgia. I don't hear people talking about it often. So let's see. Okay, so next question. Do you think console gaming has become a comparative niche in Japan compared to phones and handhelds? And do you think um, better Japanese made games can turn the tide? Like, I think console games are not as popular as handhelds, obviously, and definitely not as smartphones. But it is kind of, I mean, it's not incredibly um, out of the picture. I mean, the Wii U still sold like millions here. I mean, that's pretty good for the Wii U. It's the PS4 is still like the number one best-selling console in Japan pretty much every week. Um, it's not exactly like a downturn. I mean, it's a downturn, but it's comparatively anyway. But it's not gone. It's not like nobody plays them anymore. It's just the kind of thing where I think if you had bigger Japanese games, it would turn the tide a bit. Like people would be more interested in it, because like you'll see when some big Japanese game comes out, consoles sell. I mean, it happened with Splatoon and stuff like that. That sold Wii U's, a lot of Wii U's in Japan. Um, it sold. It happens when things like Final Fantasy come out. I bet you there'll be a big spike in Japan for the PS4s. When stuff like that, when big games come out, it sells consoles. And the games that are big in Japan are different from the games that are big in the U.S. So yeah, I mean, I guess it would. I think probably Final Fantasy 7, not Final Fantasy 7, Resident Evil 7 will probably sell some consoles. It's it's just the kind of thing that Japanese gamers have a kind of like for more so than other types of games like that are big in the U.S. anyway. You know, something like like an Elder Scrolls game. It's huge in the U.S. Like if another Elder Scrolls comes out, that'll sell millions. You know, Call of Duty comes out, it sells millions. In Japan, those kinds of things don't sell as much as a game like Yakuza does. They just don't. And you know, like it's just like a terms of in terms of the taste of the games. Like a Yakuza game, generally it sells about 500,000 copies. Um, you know, um, something like Elder Scrolls, like Skyrim, probably didn't sell that much. It definitely didn't sell as much in the first week, at least. Um, so you know you can see the difference in the kind of gaming scenes. Um, what next question anyway? What's the deal with hug pillows? I don't know, but apparently there's some kind of thing where if you sleep with those pillows, it corrects your posture for when you sleep, so like it can prevent back pain. That I don't know how true that is, but like that's what people use them for. So like I've had people suggest I get one, not like not like weirdos, like people I work with, who don't know that I like play games and stuff or am into gaming. Like have recommend like, oh, you know, like if you have back pain, you should get one of those hug pillows because like you can sleep with it and it'll makes your back straight or whatever when you sleep. I thought, oh well, that must be what people use them for, what the actual use for them is, not like just for people to put anime pillowcases on and sleep with. But you know, I guess that's the image of them because that's kind of what everybody sees. Let's see. So what's next question is what is your favorite game from the Soul series, Bloodborne included? Um, I don't know. That's hard. It probably will just be Dark Souls, I guess. I probably played that one the most. Just regular old Dark Souls. Demon Souls is really high up for me too. Those two, like Dark Souls and Demon Souls, I can kind of go back to at any time and feel fine playing those. Like I wouldn't feel bored or like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this again. Whereas like the other ones, I I get a little burned out on after a while. So like, you know, Dark Souls 2, I don't feel like I should go back to that anytime soon. Same with Dark Souls 3. And it's not to say that those weren't good, and I played through them like both of them at least 6 times. So, you know, but like I played through Dark Souls original like 40 times and Demon Souls like 20 times. So I'm not saying, you know, it's not exactly the same level. Bloodborne I played a bunch too. But I'd like to see a Bloodborne 2. That would be cool. I'd be happy with that. But who knows what will happen with that. Let's see. Next we've got Devoid Dude is back in short succession actually because he was earlier in the video, but he's back with more questions and he's got multiple questions this time. Why don't you use the cool intro with the hands that you used to use before in most videos? I still have that intro, and I could use it, I guess, but like since I stopped like editing my videos at all, um, I just don't have the will to go back and edit that thing in. Anytime I edit a video, you'll know I edited it because that intro will be there. Like I haven't given up using it. I just haven't edited anything in so long that like there's just I haven't had an opportunity to put it in. I guess like if I do edit something, I thought of a couple of videos that I would wanted to make that I thought like, oh well, I could make this video. It'd be pretty fun, but those would require editing, and I just haven't done them yet. I don't know if I'll get around to it, but I have some like fun ones that I think people will like because they required like actual research into things. They weren't like me just randomly talking about a game off the top of my head. They were like actual stuff I researched and talked to people about. So that was kind of interesting. I mean, this is a thing like, but don't get your hopes up for that because like I've had the script for that, like all the stuff, the info for it, for like 2 years. I just haven't done the video. So don't get your hopes up like thinking like you're gonna get a slick edited video that's cool for me because it's just not gonna happen. Maybe I'll do it though eventually. So let's see. Do you generate an income from your YouTube channel? Not really. I mean, um, I think from my YouTube channel I get like $100 a year or some shit. I don't get. It's like really not a lot of money. Like like once a year or so, I get like a message from Google saying like we deposited $100 into your account, and like that's like it. I mean, I don't make enough videos to really get anything from it, and like the stuff I talk about is so not something like a million 13-year-olds are going to be searching for. So it's the kind of thing where you're not going to make any type of income from it. It's just not that kind of channel, I guess. I mean, it could, in all honesty, like I could make a better channel. It's not that it's not like this is the best I can do. I'm gonna fix my shirt. It's been fucked up this whole time. Um, this is, I don't do the channel though to make money. I don't. I mean, it would be cool if I made money, but I don't want to put any effort into it either. So like, there's a downside there. Um, I honestly, I could make a better channel. I could do videos that were more in depth, and I could do videos so I could add in footage. I have all the equipment to do that. I mean, I'd have to buy lighting and like a green screen or something, but I could make videos like that. I mean, previously I was sort of when I was originally started the channel, I was planning to do a bit more, and like all my most popular videos are still my oldest videos because they're the ones that I edited and they look all right. In these ones, I'm just like literally just putting my camera on it's on a box of tissues right now, and I'm just going off the top of my head. I mean, obviously this is a Q&A. I should be doing that, but like I do that with everything. It's not even like I put any effort into it beyond like turning the camera on and talking. So, I guess I could put more effort into it and make money, a little bit more money at least than like being paid once a year for this. But like I don't want to put in the effort really. I mean, I kind of have a good idea of how to edit things. Like I'm not, I took classes in college for video editing. It's not like I can't do it. It's just that, it's not fun for me. It's not fun to do editing. It's not fun to like capture footage and do like put all this effort into making videos. It's just not why I do YouTube. I don't really care if there's a lot of people watching or a few people watching. As long as there's somebody watching and like they're interacting, I feel okay. Because that's all I really do YouTube for, is just like the small amount of interaction I can get about like a hobby that I don't really have a lot of friends who are interested in. So that's pretty much it. So next question: any advice on how to become better at dungeon crawlers like Demon Gaze or Tokyo Operation Abyss? Um, okay, being good at a dungeon crawler is like a matter of like being good at math. It's kind of like that, or being good at creating battle strategies. And again, that it all kind of goes back to math in that case. Like basically, the way to be good at a dungeon crawler is to look at everything like a like a kind of like a flow chart of battle. You have to think of like which characters are in your party and why, and how are you connecting their skills to make everything better. So like if you just kind of make a party of like random people, it's probably not going to be a good party. And if you don't think about how the skills interact with the other people, how you're going to do things, or what kind of strategy you're going to use for battles, like you're just going to suck at those games because they're they come from like a kind of I don't know, like a DNA of extremely unforgiving games. Like the first Wizardry is not exactly a forgiving game, and it's like kicking the teeth penalties, I think, later on in the game where you're just like getting level drained. I mean, that's if you get level drained in Wizardry 1, like, and you're thinking like, damn, now I can't use my higher level skills. Not only does that suck for the battle you're in, but it's permanent. So like you just lost like hours of grinding just on one attack. That sucks. It's unforgiving. It's not cool. And the newer ones don't usually do that. But like, you have to think of it as like you can't play the game like you would play a normal like JRPG, in the sense that you can't just mash the attack button and hope to get through. You actually have to think about how your team is built, and once you get like a a team that's gone together and you have a basic battle plan, you can really just blow through most of the stuff. But like a lot of it comes in the character creation and the character skills. And once you really get into that, you'll have no trouble with dungeon crawlers because how they work is entirely based on how you create the party and use the party. I mean, that's basically it. That's the secret. It's not really a secret. It's just kind of like a lot of people aren't willing to put in the kind of effort it takes right at the beginning. Like right when, if like when I make a party for a dungeon crawler, it takes hours. Like when I first start a game like a dungeon crawler, it's not gonna be a quick party creation. I'm gonna have to like not only am I gonna have to look at every kind of class and combination of every class, I'm gonna have to look at it and try and figure out from the limited knowledge you have at the beginning, what is going to work, how it can work. And sometimes you'll get partway through the game and you'll be like, this isn't going to work. You have to like take someone out and level up somebody from the beginning. There's general kind of party combinations you can think of for like a simple kind of combinations that work in almost every game. Like generally you'll have 5 or 6 characters. You'll put one defensive fighter in the front, one offensive fighter in the front, and a kind of skilled fighter in the front, like a fencer or something like that. Like a finesse fighter. And then you'd have in the back, you'll have like a healer and a mage and probably an archer of some kind. And that's like a real basic setup, but like it covers all your needs. So if you're playing like, I mean, obviously if you're playing games that have different character classes, like Etrian Odyssey goes nuts with the character classes and they'll absolutely change them completely in the games. And I'm playing Etrian Odyssey 5 slowly right now, and like it's got all new classes with all different things. So like, I'm playing through and I don't know how to build a party based on the previous game. You have to kind of guess what you're doing because all the classes are different. So it's a little slow going, just because like, I haven't actually been playing like I've been playing something else also, and I've been like more interested in the other things. So there's like some noise on my balcony. I can't figure out what it is. Wind, I guess. I don't know. It's making weird noises. But that's it. I don't know. I guess that's it. I guess I've answered that question anyway. So next question is, what is your occupation? I'm a translator. I translate. I translate for a company, and then I translate freelance also. So I do translation as my job. Let's see. Will you upgrade your PC anytime soon? And how old is your current PC? Man, this is some shit because my PC literally broke this week. My PC totally died. The motherboard is fried. I don't know what happened, but like it was just like doing my normal stuff, and then all of a sudden black screen, and then you turn it on, and it's just like ridiculous beeping. And I tried all the troubleshooting I could do to like get around that, but apparently it's a motherboard failure, and my computer died. It's dead. And a friend of mine had a extra computer like that was like, oh, this is my old computer, and I have a new computer. I'm not using the old one, so if you want to use that in the meantime, you can have it. So I got my friend's computer, and I'm using it, and I started using it, and I'm like, hey, this computer has the same specs as my actual computer that just died. So like I just got a computer to replace my old computer that's basically the same computer. It's actually like a smidge better. So like if that gives you any idea of how old my computer was, I don't actually know. It was 5 years old maybe, and this one is probably about that too. The one I'm using for this is about that also. But it's not horrible. Like I can't really, had my computer died and I didn't get this one, I probably would have been forced to buy a new one because there's so much stuff I do on the computer. I just need a computer. But currently, like with this one, I feel like, oh, I could probably still use it for a couple of years. And like the only thing I can think of like that I can't do on my computer is like play new games. and there's not a lot of new games that come out that are PC only that I really feel the need to buy. So, like for example, I played most recent game I've been playing on the PC is Shadowrun Hong Kong, and it runs fine on my computer. And I feel like if I can play that fine, like I'm fine. Like I don't, there's not a lot of games that I'm gonna be like going nuts for. I probably would have played like XCOM 2 on the PC, and I'm not sure this one can't run it. I don't actually know. Maybe it can, but I haven't checked, and it's coming out for consoles anyway. So and I feel like most stuff that comes out for games that I want is going to come out on a console eventually or at some point, or it's usually the kind of game that I can run anyway. So like Shadowrun Hong Kong, which I was right at the end of before my computer died. I lost all my save data. Thanks, Shadowrun Hong Kong. So I'm gonna have to play that through that entirely again. I was literally on the last mission for that. I was just like finishing up the last missions I had to do before. It like gives you a warning. Hey, if you go to this mission, you can't do anything else. So you better finish up everything. And I was like doing that. So I'm like, I had one more mission to do, and then the final mission, and one of those missions was optional. And I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna finish this real quick. And now I have to go through the whole game again. Not a big deal. I liked that game, and you can play as different character classes. It makes it feel different, so it's cool. I was playing as a mage before because I always do, but now I'm gonna play. Now I'm gonna play through it again as a street samurai because it's all right. So like, eventually I guess I'll have to buy a new PC, and when I do, I guess I'll get. I mean, I have to get a laptop because I don't really have space or the will to sit in front of a computer on a desk. But maybe I'll get a gaming laptop. Just it's something where I can actually like use a graphics card and like be a bit more PC gaming because I have a ton of games on my PC. I've been saying that I'm going to make a video showing you my library of PC games, my GOG library at least, but I haven't gotten around to that, and then my computer died. So yeah, I guess the answer to that question is I don't know, maybe a couple of years. But not anytime soon. So maybe this is the last question. I'm from Ireland. Did you ever see or hear of Irish wrestler Fergal Devitt? Yes, he is Finn Balor. I mean, yeah, I'm a fan. I like him. He's in WWE now, but he's on the main roster now. I think he probably wasn't when you asked this question though. But yeah, he was the NXT champ. He was in New Japan as King Devitt, and the original founder of the Bullet Club. You can't really. He's a good wrestler. He's probably going to be the champ in WWE at some point soon. He's good. He's good. Oh, there is an extra question. Just scroll down to the next page. And last question from Devoid Dude here is: would you visit Ireland? Sure. I've never been to. Like I said, I've never been to Europe, but like Ireland seems like a good a place as any. I don't know what I'd do there. Like that's my problem with Europe is like I don't have anything I particularly want to do in Europe, so I don't really have like a strong reason to go. Um, like I just don't have anything like I want to go to Switzerland to go to the H.R. Giger Museum, but like I can't justify going to Europe just to go to the H.R. Giger Museum. Like that seems like that's too excessive. Um, but yeah, I don't know. So, all right, thanks for questions. We'll move on so I can. Maybe this will be the last set, maybe not. Um, Next, we've got 222277. 22 is spelled out in letters, that's why I'm reading it that way. But, so here is. Let's see. Question is: what's the state of collector's editions and the general consensus of them in Japan? Every game seems to have one, and I feel like I have to get a lot of them for my collection. Are they worth more complete in Japan, or just a bunch of garbage no one cares about at the end of the day? I think there are people who really like collector's editions, but like I don't see a lot of them getting like worth anything. There are some. They're crazy collector's editions in Japan that are like cost tons and tons of money. Those things tend to sell out immediately though. So like collector's editions for things that are like kind of obscure tend to sell out for example, like I have the collector's edition of Fire Emblem, the latest one, and that sold out immediately. Like I ordered it on the day it was announced, and it sold out like an hour after I ordered it. So, I mean, I would probably get rid of mine really because I'm not like really hot on that game after playing it and like all the garbage that got attached to it. But I something like that is worthwhile. But like then you'll have like the Dynasty Warriors games always have those like collector's editions. The treasure box edition, it's huge. It's like gigantic. It's like a big ass box filled with stuff, and they always make those. But like like a year later, you'll find those for way marked down. So I don't know who's buying them right at launch or anything. But some the treasure box usually is like over $100 to buy one of those, and then like a year or two later, you can get the same one for like $15. So I feel like, who wants those? Who wants to pay that much? And who has the space for that kind of stuff? That's what I always wonder. I mean, in Japan, it's a little less spacious than, even like when I was in the U.S. at least. So I don't know. I haven't, I don't have a ton of friends who are gamers. So I don't know anybody who has a game collection. Even my friends who are gamers don't really have collections. So it's the kind of thing where I don't know who is buying these collector's editions, but there are a bunch of crazy collectors in Japan who are totally into them, that kind of thing. But I think they're actually a bit more limited than you imagine collector's editions to be in other situations, like in the U.S. where like your Call of Duty collector's edition comes out. That's not going to be like worth anything because there's going to be a million of them. But I don't know. I think it's probably limited editions tend to be a bit more limited, unless it's a huge game, and then like, who cares? I guess. I think what Japan teams tends to do with their collector's editions also is they make collector's edition consoles. There's a ton of those where it's just like a limited edition Final Fantasy console or something, and like that'll be it. It'll come with the game normally, but the console has like a special cover or something, and you're just like, oh, I got to get that for my Final Fantasy collection. That kind of thing happens a lot in Japan, whereas it doesn't seem to happen so much in the U.S. And the second question is, honestly, what is video game culture like in Japan? Is it like sports where just everyone talks about it like the NFL in the U.S.? Or is it more hush hush and you're branded a nerd if you're open about it? Okay, there's a thing here with this, like, nobody talks about games in Japan. Like, normally, like, when I'm at work, never heard anybody talk about games, like, just anything. But when you're in, mixed company, I guess, like, nobody is usually talking about games unless it's like some kind of smartphone game that everybody is playing. And like pretty much everybody plays like some kind of smartphone game, like even people who don't have like consoles or anything. But people who have consoles and stuff like that, like there is a kind of a, it seems strange to say because I think the image is a bit different, but it does kind of, if you're like playing games and you're older, people tend to think of you as like something's wrong with you. Like you're not adult enough. And it's not necessarily like in your 20s or something. It's more like, if you're married or something, you probably shouldn't waste time playing games or that kind of thing. Like it's a weird kind of thing. But so like I don't really mention that I play games to a lot of people. And like I don't think anybody would be put off by it. Like I know like lots of people will play games, but like if you're really into it, it's the kind of point where it gets to be like there's something wrong with you. And maybe it's sort of like that in the U.S. too now, where previously it was just kind of like you're a nerd, but that was like in the 80s and early 90s. Not so much now, obviously. Let's see. Next, maybe I can still go. Next, we've got Mick Hero here is asking, how do you feel about emulation, both official like the Virtual Console and unofficial like downloading ROMs and using emulators? Generally, okay, I should mention this. I initially used to run a ROM server. This was not I used to run a ROM server with a dude from Indiana and a dude from South Africa, and we had one of the biggest collections of ROMs on the internet. And this was in 1998, maybe. So this, I mean, you can imagine like having the biggest collection of ROMs in 1998 is not a huge collection right now, but like because you didn't have a lot of the systems that are still being emulated now, and like this is before. So I was running this server before like um, um, emulation was even like perfected. So like you'd have all these ROMs, but like half of them you couldn't play, um, and some of them would run very poorly. Genesis emulation especially was shit back then. In 1998, like the NES emulation was mostly good, and Super Nintendo emulation was better. Not than the NES, but like it was better than Genesis, for example, which almost had nothing. And forget about TurboGrafx that had almost nothing. Um, so like in your more obscure systems, nothing. You had like Game Boy emulation was all right then. Nintendo emulation, Super Nintendo, Genesis was kind of bad. Game Gear was kind of bad. Um, Master System was also kind of bad. And eventually, all people worked that shit out. But like, you know, mostly if you were emulating in the late '90s, you were like just playing Super Nintendo games, and that's like, I played a ton of emulators back then because like I was running the server, so I had like tons and tons of ROMs, and then like, I just kind of got out of it. I was started playing. Those same guys that I totally lost contact with those guys. But like we did, we used to talk a bunch on the server all the time. We'd always be in there talking to each other in the server chat, and then like, you'd get people coming in to chat, and then you'd have like, and then we started talking, and we would play some games online. So like, we were all part of the. Actually, two of us were part of the StarCraft beta at the time, and we just gave a copy to the South African guy, and we played StarCraft online during the beta testing, like stuff like that. We had like a kind of a bit of a community based around it, and then it got really big and like you know scammy. Like people were constantly trying to sell ROMs and do stuff like that. So we just kind of shut down the server basically and just went our own ways. And it's kind of too bad because I liked playing with those guys, and I never met them either, but like they were super cool, and I spent like a ton of time talking to them. So I wonder what happened to those guys actually. Um, but yeah, I so like I can't say like I'm 100% against emulation, but like I don't use it anymore, and it's not because like I'm totally against emulation. Like I don't mind emulating systems. So like I don't mind emulator systems, and I don't mind virtual console and stuff like that. Um, but I had the issue I have with emulation is that like it makes everybody like feel like they like know everything about every game and they can play it in a way that's really superficial but stupid. It's the kind of thing where if to say what I mean is like if you have to buy your games, like the amount of games that you can play is limited. So you have to actually research what you're going to buy, and you have to like, and then once you get it, you feel obligated to play through it because you spend money on it. Whereas like with emulation, you have access immediately to like basically the entire library of a million consoles, and you don't know where to start. And when you do, you don't really know what to play. So it's the kind of thing where, what are you going to do? You have so much stuff, and you'll play it for like an hour, and you'll be like, oh, I played that game, I'm done. I've got 550 other games to go through, so I'm just going to play this for a half an hour and be soon I'll be the knowledge master. I've played everything. And there's a lot of people who are like that, but they have no real depth to like how much they play the game. So I think emulation is kind of fosters that kind of mentality where there's a people who would be like, oh yeah, I played that game, it was awesome, and you'd be like, you know, again, like I was saying earlier, like they played a half hour of it on an emulator. It doesn't count. Sorry. Um, it's not that kind of situation. So I feel like, you know, if someone is really into emulation, they're usually like their knowledge of their deep knowledge of games tends to be really low, whereas the breadth of their knowledge seems to be a bit wider. So, you know, I think I'm against that kind of thing. Like in not emulation itself, but the like kind of people who feel like I'm super knowledgeable of the games because I've played a half hour of 500 games that I emulated, as opposed to like someone who is, you know, played a ton of games, but also like in depth played them, so like kind of understands what they're talking about when they play them. It's that kind of thing where I feel like, you know, when you're dealing with it on YouTube, it's like pretty obvious who is like that, um, and who is not. I guess real recognize real, as it will. But whatever. So emulation altogether, like I never use it except for when I play Sega CD. Like I don't have a Sega CD. I use my original Xbox to emulate the Sega CD, but I use all original discs, so I don't feel bad about it. Um, so like I don't download discs and play Sega CD games that way. I buy the discs and put them in my original Xbox and play it with the Xbox controller. Not ideal. The Duke, not so ideal playing Sega CD games, but you know, you know how it is. Everything else though, I don't use emulators for. And that's not and that's I mean I guess technically like I use my PS3 to play PS1 games, so I guess that's kind of an emulator. Um, I don't care about stuff like that. I don't care about Virtual Console either. I think like whatever, it's fine. It's not a big deal to me. It's still like it's just a matter of not having complete access to everything all the time. Sorry, I have like a ton of messages that popped up on my screen, um, which makes it more worthwhile to think about the games. I guess that's really what I want to say. So let's see. I guess I can answer the next question because I can't answer it. And then that will be the end. So this will be the last one from Bungle Bro is asking me, have you been to Pallet Town? I wandered there randomly after going to Tokyo Disney, and it had a real stuck in the 90s feel, which I thought was awesome. Um, I don't even know what that is. So I've never been there, but I don't know what it is. So I'm gonna have to look that up. I should do that now. Since I'm gonna end this, I guess I'm gonna look up Pallet Town, and then I'll be back in the next video to talk about some other questions people had for me. So see you next time.